So gang, Caleb here with Project 13. Wanted to take a few moments with you and talk about the peer-to-peer layer we've enacted for moving large objects in and out of your library or through your library. So the first thing we need to discuss when talking about peer-to-peer is permissions relative to allowing data to flow in and out of your device. So this is actually very important. There's a number of service providers who have decided that they will provide a service to you. So maybe they're streaming you music or something along those lines. And then they'll provide the actual content from another node, maybe another user, and then not bother to tell that other user. And this has not been received well as people start to find out that their bandwidth, especially their upload, which is typically the much slower leg of their network speed, is being utilized to send data to someone else, and they're of course not getting paid for this. So we wanted to be very sensitive to that. So the first thing that we have to do to engage in a peer-to-peer interaction outside of a chat and VoIP, which you permission by accepting, is you go to Settings and Tools. So you start with your navigation compass, Settings and Tools, and you go to Your Preferences. You want to open Your Preferences and scroll to the bottom. And at the bottom we have this Accept P2P thing, this checkbox right here. So that needs to be selected. And that is essentially a global acceptance of P2P interactions for this device in question. So now we have verified that we have peer-to-peer interaction enabled for this device. We need to go to our friends record right here, and we need to verify that the friend we want to share the piece of data with has its P2P checked. So what this is saying is we accept and will engage in P2P interaction with desktop 12, but we won't accept and engage in P2P interaction with OSX test 01. So this allows you to very narrowly define who you will engage in a P2P interaction with. So now that we have that set up, we also have to make sure our stun server is working, and that is right here. You just see that in your dashboard, and your stun server is green. Now on a Windows system, this is pretty simple. The service starts up with the device, and if you go into your services, you can actually stop that or make it a manual startup or whatever you want. On a Mac, it's very similar. So the next thing we want to talk about is logging. We like to log, and for those of you who care, you can see that on a Windows system in Windows Temp. It's socket server right here. You can see the data flowing out. And then on a Mac system, it's in /temp. And you can see the data if you care. I like to look at things, so anyway, it's all good fun. So now what we need to do is we can go to our data flow here at the very end, and we can see data flowing in and out of the system. Now in this case, you can see that I already have an existing data transfer taking place right here, and it's going to desktop 12. So if we flip over to desktop 12, we can see that in their accepted interactions on the data flow level, they have this thing taking place, okay, which is kind of cool. So for this discussion, we're going to pause this, and we're going to pause this. That way we can start anew, and we don't have that that transaction mucking things up. So you can see here that the log is appropriately stopped. It sent out this last packet right here saying that got set to a pause, and over here are accepted. It rolled out of there, and same thing here because it's no longer accepted. It's in a pause state. So now what we can do is go back to our library, and I'm just going to Control L my way to my library, and we can see we have a movie here. Let's go to an MP4. So again, in my library, that's just search. So I turn my search on. A little light bulb comes on, tells me I've got it enabled. And you can see here I've got all of these MP4s that I can share with somebody. So you can validate that that's an MP4 just by clicking on that, and there you go. So again, we just click on that black space. The the record gets highlighted with our red color, telling us that use caution, you're about to do something with it. And on a PC or on a configured Mac, you can right-click and get to your share. Or you can just come up here if you're on a Mac and you just click on your share icon. So now we're going to share that record. And we're going to share that with desktop 12. So we just select desktop 12, just like that, and we save. So now what's going to happen is the information that contains this record, there's 3 or 4 rows in different tables, across different tables, gets sent up through the data flow hub. It's encapsulated in a new entity called a P13 or PXIII data entity. So that just, the same way that we have RSA keys encapsulate the AES keys, that's exactly what that's doing. Just makes it that much harder to do any metadata harvesting off of the data flow hub. So now you don't even know what's been encapsulated. You just know a piece of data is moving. So now if we go back to desktop test 12, we can see that this data flow, or I'm sorry, that this peer-to-peer interaction has been accepted, and that data is starting to flow in. You can see just the beginning there of data. So again, if we look at our log, we see here these big blocks of data going out, and this system over here is in turn saying, hey, I just received block number 4, send me block number 5, and so on and so forth. So we can see that we are now moving data across the peer-to-peer layer between devices. So we're very excited about this, as we can now look at the data layers that are all happening here. Let's go back here and see that we can now use chat, we can use VoIP, and we can now move data across the P2P layer. In the future, we're going to be leveraging this to move regular Project 13 data, so messages, posts, comments, and whatever, across the peer-to-peer layer as well. So obviously this will be something that you set up, and obviously there's some data knowledge transfer that's take place about uploading information and all of that stuff, and we'll deal with that later. But the architecture is there, and we're excited about that. So now what we can see here is that we're moving data from point A to point B across our P2P layer, and we can see that that's being visually displayed to us by our bar moving across the screen here. So that's pretty neat. So the next thing that we need to talk about is the speed and the performance. So you can actually shut one of these devices off and turn it back on, and it will just automatically figure out that data needs to get sent and turn itself back on and proceed with the data interaction, which is really cool. One of the things that's really important in discussing this feature is you're still limited by your pipe, in particular in regards to uploads. That's where torrenting has a large degree of performance enhancing capabilities, because now you're uploading from 10 different nodes, but you're downloading into one, but you have major and minor numbers going on, so that you're not stepping on each other's toes as far as the upload goes, but your download pipe is a lot faster than your upload pipe. So you can run 10 or 20 torrents from an uploading perspective into one downloading entity and get a much greater increase in performance. So we have to add that layer into this, and we will, but we want to really make sure that you understand that right now you're limited in regards to a one thing uploading, one thing downloading. The other thing that has to be referenced in all of this is that we're running on top of the UDP layer, and we've sort of instituted our own networking stack on top of that. So basically it sends a piece of data to the target, and then it waits for a confirmation of that piece of data that's been received before it sends out the next one. Now, the UDP layer actually supports the idea of just shotgunning information out. And so we will be altering our packet to support that sort of methodology here in the very near future. And if you follow what Google is doing with Quick, it'll be very similar to that. So that's exciting. So a few more things we want to talk about here is the ability to, from your accepted, you can just see what you've transferred. Now obviously here we haven't got it all down, so if we click on that, it'll just say the thing is still moving, have patience. If we go here to our completed, we can see here that we can just click on it again, and that's really nice. If we go here to our paused, we can see that we have that one record in our pause state, and let's just go ahead and play that. So it fades out of here, goes back to our accepted, and you can see here that what's going to happen is these two things now have to argue over who gets access to write that they've received a packet back to Windows 50, and Windows 50 will start to toggle the data that it gets, that it sends out. So it's pretty neat actually to be able to send all of this data over the peer-to-peer connection. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited that when we take our data and we encapsulate it and then we encrypt it, we are starting to restore an enormous amount of confidence that when I put a piece of information onto the internet, it's going to go to its intended recipient, and no one can open that packet up and see what it is. They can open it up, but they have to deal with AES encrypted data, and that's going to take them longer than it took the universe to create itself for them to uncrack with a supercomputer using brute force. So we're excited about that. We like that. We hope that this tutorial will help you start to understand the power that you can leverage with Project 13.